Hey, welcome back everybody. Today is part 2 of our beginner kind of intro video into Gates of Hell Ostfront. So first video we covered kind of opening moves, research, some basics of the mechanics, and then of course our first offensive battle. This one's going to be a defensive battle. So you're going to see the difference between kind of what you should do as far as your call signs and kind of your tactics. So let's just dive right into it. So as you see here, I'm actually going to leave the first call sign alone. You should always bring infantry. Like that's a given. Always bring infantry. And we talked about our pioneer squads being an excellent choice. Our early mid game, they're really equipped to handle most everything. So we're going to leave that alone. What I did differently, which you might have actually, I think I already covered this yesterday. I did. So was we changed out a couple things for call sign 2. I actually added in 2 machine guns and a pack. The reason why I did that is typically defensive battles, you're going to want to have machine guns available. That helps hold points and suppress infantry. And then, of course, anti-tank weaponry is a must. We're a little light, to be honest, on anti-tank weaponry. I do have this gun here, but I also, this is like an artillery piece. It can also function in the early game sort of like an anti-tank gun, so we might be okay. I think I'm going to leave it alone. One thing I'll mention about defensive battles, tanks are, at least in my experience, are not the greatest thing to bring. If it's a super heavy tank, sure, but like your light tanks are kind of a joke. They'll get picked off pretty easily, especially when they're stationary and just hanging out holding a line. So I am going to leave the Panzer I in my list here, simply because I can't switch it out for a pack. I'm about 2 points away from being able to afford another one to put in here, and I don't want to take anything out of here. So, but again, not the greatest choice. Later on in the game, when you unlock heavy tanks and you unlock tank destroyers, yeah, those are fine. You could definitely bring them along. I'd still recommend at least having 1 or 2 anti-tank guns available. So I think this layout's going to be okay. One hint or trick I want to talk about that I kind of discovered in the game as well is sometimes when you're selecting your map, if you don't click on something and you click out of it, it'll auto-select which map you're going to fight on out of all 3 that you have to choose from. That's for offensive battles, of course. If that happens, if you click this bar up here, it actually brings your map back up. In this case, we have one choice. We're being attacked here by the enemy. It's the point we just took. So I'm going to click confirm. Again, let's take a peek at our map and see what we're kind of facing here. And let's go for it. So we're going to dive right into this defensive battle. So again, one of the things I kind of talked about in my previous video was the research I unlocked. One of them was small defenses. As you move in through these battles and as time goes on, you're doing more and more, you want to eventually unlock medium and large. Not a huge priority for large. Medium I'd probably work on within the next couple battles if you can. But that's going to really help you hold points and make these battles a lot less grueling. Now, if you choose not to unlock small defenses or any defenses, good on you, but it makes it really rough. That means you have to hold the points, which pretty much means you're going to mass your forces around the 2 points and hope that you can hold them properly. I've done it. It's not fun. It really makes it a miserable experience, so I'd recommend doing that. All right, so let's look at which way our AI that we have from small defenses is facing. So they're kind of looking off to the southeast, so I'd imagine this might be where the enemy comes from. Again, that could be wrong. They could come from the west and the south. So we're going to send out our first call sign, and you notice I don't have enough to do my second one yet. I don't have enough action points. But while I wait for that, I am going to send a squad of infantry here, and I'm going to send one north to this point. I do really think that this point is going to be the concentration of the enemy attack. Could be wrong. We'll find out. And I should be getting enough action points here momentarily. So you get action points, I think it's based on every second, every other second they kind of tick in. So like I talked about yesterday, when you start getting bigger call signs and they become more expensive, you'll probably only be able to send out 1 or 2 and then have to wait as the battle goes on. This can make things pretty tough, but if you plan it right and you set up your call signs correctly, it's not too bad. So I'm a little stuck here because I'm debating if they're able to come in and cross this frozen river, they're going to come for this point. If I have no anti-tank weaponry set up, that could be really painful. So I'm probably going to have my pack just hang out right here, so I should be able to fire across the river to support. this gun, and I'm going to tow this gun. Remember I talked about our previous video where you're able to tow guns with certain tanks or cars, and eventually you're going to need to do this as a tactic. You'll need to be towing stuff on a regular basis because the guns are going to be too big to move around. Not really the case right now, but you know, just in case, keep that in mind. You start unlocking the bigger artillery and stuff. So we're going to set up this gun probably right along here. And I'm using the center mouse, the scrolling wheel, and I'm holding it down, and I'm able to kind of pivot and look around for fields of fire. Something important to keep in mind for your guns. If they're tucked behind a hill and they can't shoot, they're not going to shoot, and you're going to get knocked out probably. So just something to kind of keep in mind as far as this goes. Defensive battles start off, you have, I want to say it's probably 2 to 3 minutes before the enemy actually starts hitting. Gives you a little bit of time to set up. I do wish this is something the developers would kind of expand out and maybe give you 5 minutes or maybe even 10. I don't know, maybe that seems too much for some people, but other times when you're kind of waiting for call signs to come in or you're trying to build defensive lines, you're not really able to do it because you have very short time to work with. So this infantry here, I'm sending up into the forest. I'm probably going to use this defensive point if I'm able to set my guys up for now. And I'm going to have these guys not really dig in, but use this for now, just in case call signs do come in from the north for the enemy. That would be a potential problem. These guys, on the other hand, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to have them build defensive points. So I'm going to click on the little shovel symbol here and hold the shift key. And then I can just click. And I'm also clicking to point them in a direction I want them to face. I normally recommend kind of building them in a double line, so you have the front line and the back line. And you don't have to build all 12. So when you're done, release shift and then hit that symbol again to have them start building. Keep an eye on these guys. There's kind of a glitch I've noticed with the game where when they're done building, you would think that they would just go into their foxholes. No, they're typically going to just hang out and not do anything and be standing outside the foxholes, which will get them probably killed pretty quickly. So let's get this gun. I'm probably going to actually deploy it right back here. My hope is that they go... I would hate to set the gun up in the forest because it's going to be pretty useless, but I'm probably correct in thinking that they are going to attack point B pretty heavily, more than anything, but we'll find out here. So in order to unhitch the gun, I'm going to right-click here where it shows the little chain symbol. It's unhitching the gun. And I'll just deploy the tank along the ridge here to kind of keep an eye on things. I'm going to move this ammo crate over as well towards the gun. Again, we want to keep our gun supplied. This is what I was talking about, guys, as far as the your men. So they built these foxholes, and they're literally just standing around outside the foxholes. So yeah, not a good thing. So, and I just selected all the guys by mistake. That's quite annoying. I was trying to individually have them just go into different foxholes. So I'm now going to go ahead and do that. This guy's kind of just hanging out. We don't want him hanging out outside. Let's get this gun actually on this tiny little hill here. So this is even worse than I thought. They're coming in from behind. So yeah, this is something you're going to find in these battles quite often. This is why I always talk about make sure your forces are fluid and you're ready to pivot. I was wrong. They came in from the rear. This is going to be fun. I'm going to have to move quickly and get my infantry and stuff ready to support. This is going to be my stopping force for now. I'm just going to send forward the infantry to kind of hold them back. So they're coming in from literally the west and the north. So this is kind of a worst case scenario. This will happen in your defensive battles. I'm going to move my infantry into the forest here. So I'm going to send a force here to block. I'm going to move this machine gun, or actually I'll move this pack gun right here. I'll move this machine gun right here. And then I'm going to probably move my actual gun here. So let's see. Let's get this machine gun set up right over here. This happens, guys. Again, sometimes you can use the AI to kind of guesstimate where their enemy is going to come in. It doesn't always work out that way. This is why I said be fluid, be ready to move your force. I'm just going to have these guys go into the forest and lay down and be like kind of a suppressive force. Press some control to have them stay put. And I'm going to get my other weapons kind of set up. I'm going to bring the machine gun in as well. So let's get the gun over here behind the trenches. So they're basically hitting us. We have no defensive line. This happens, not a problem. Don't panic. Get your forces in place. Keep an eye on them. Just shift them around. It's not the end of the world. And here comes an enemy tank as well in the north. So I'm probably going to want to actually bring this gun here. Oh, it's a carrier. While it's just a carrier, keep in mind it can do some decent damage to your forces. Don't just assume that you're all good, no worries. Those carriers have machine guns on them, so they're like a mobile machine gun platform. They can actually do a decent amount of damage to your forces. I'm going to have my guys stand up. I'm going to click control again to have them stand up and have them suppress. I'm going to actually move my, my medics back a little bit too. Okay, let's unhinge the gun. Nope, just unhinge the gun. And let's actually swing the tank here. Let's bring the gun forward. So this is, they're actually hitting the position from multiple sides. That's why I have the machine gun kind of set up here to kind of hold this position coming in from the northwest. Let's bring the pack into the forest as well. So I'm hoping to kind of knock this guy out as he comes in close. So another important thing I mentioned yesterday was artillery. When sometimes they can actually fire on tanks directly, keep in mind it's going to load different ammunition, which will prevent it from actually being a functional artillery piece. It's going to turn it to a tank gun essentially. So we don't want that for most of the time, so I'm going to press the shift key, I'm sorry, the space key in order to change the ammunition type back to explosive. I have my guys lay down, they're taking some decent damage. These are going to be a threat. We have a Maxim machine gun and this looks like actually this is artillery piece. Decent threat. I'm going to have my guys stand back up. Now my pack should hopefully be able to deal with this tank. So let's see what we can do here. It's like right on top of us. Let's have this anti-tank gun also fire on this guy. So I need to be aware of these machine guns coming in and other things that are a threat to us. So you will be too. You obviously want to keep an eye on everything around you. So this is looking pretty sticky. We have tanks coming in, we have multiple artillery pieces coming in. This is going to be a fun fight. I might actually need to move my defensive line up, so I'm going to move the pack up. And I'm actually going to move the machine gun nest up with it as well. This tank's going to be the most immediate threat, so I guess we're going to switch to using... Now you notice the gun automatically switched again to using the anti-tank rounds. That's something to keep in mind. You know, I will need to switch it back. It's not intuitive, it's not going to do it itself. Knock that out quickly. Let's rotate the gun. Oops, that's not what I want. Let's rotate the gun. These infantry are probably going to get overrun really, really quickly. They're about to probably get grenaded or something. Oh, cool. Stand up, guys. This is what I'm talking about when they don't stand up sometimes. The enemy is literally running around them and nothing's happening. It's kind of frustrating. Oh. Yep, those are artillery pieces. We need to deal with that. Let's pull this infantry back. You want to, again, the micromanaging side, we want to get our infantry out of that direct fire of an artillery gun. They're just going to get decimated. So I'm going to put them in the trench right here. We're able to knock the one gun out. Now we got to deal with our second gun, which is hiding over here. I'm going to move these infantry up. Right about here. I'm not necessarily worried about these 4 guys that are kind of just hanging out, heading towards the other point. I think our defensive forces should be able to handle that. Doing okay on ammo. Just want to really, really knock this gun out. So I'm going to use the pressing E option to control the fire directly, see if I can do a little bit better than the AI. In this case, I can. I'd say most of the time the AI for artillery is okay. It's pretty efficient, but certain circumstances it won't fire, like we talked about in our previous video. It gets kind of janky and just doesn't line of sight, or has something break where it just won't even bother firing. First thing to check is your ammo type. Is it set up for anti-tank rounds? That's your most common issue. Second thing is just to manually take over the gun and fire. Like in this case, you see I'm doing a much better job. I wasn't even firing before. I can't believe this gun is still holding on. And he's firing back now. Wonderful. Man, that was way more than I wanted to deal with that. So these infantry that I put into the trench, I am going to move them back up to this position here. And I'm actually, oops. So we talked about the whole micromanagement side, right? I've mentioned this probably 10 times. I wasn't paying attention, and my machine gun nest got mauled. So I don't have a machine gun set up here anymore. So I'm going to pull one squad off. Let me see if I can find it. It actually looks like it got knocked out entirely and blown up, probably by that gun. Nothing I can do there, unfortunately. So I do need to leave this machine gun supporting our pack so it doesn't get stuck getting overrun with infantry. I'm going to move our medics up. This is defensive battle. Sometimes it's straight madness. Other times, as you get better at the game and you learn, I have actually I don't ever recall doing this map. So this is kind of a new one for me, and I've played quite a few battles. So at least on a defensive battle, I've done it offensively for sure. But you're going to learn that sometimes you're going to set plans, and they're not going to work, and you're going to have to pivot and change immediately. So I took time to, building these foxholes, complete waste of time, useless. The enemy was coming in from the total opposite direction. It's going to happen, not a big deal. We're going to rotate this gun, make sure it's facing the enemy, because what will happen is, again, the non-intuitive AI for your stuff is not going to turn the gun to automatically fire on these enemies. It's going to be pointing off to the northwest, and it's not going to fire or do anything, which that's a problem. So we got a little bit of infantry coming in. Actually, these are anti-tank forces. I'm going to probably move my tank up for once. Just got to be careful because those anti-tank forces are going to be an issue. Really huge threat is that mortar. They can fire from a pretty decent distance and cause all kinds of hell for your forces. Is that within range? Not yet. Okay. So we're going to deal with these guys first, and then I'm going to see if I can rotate the gun to deal with our mortar team that's coming in. That was good effect. Knocked one guy out. You'll see these early light artillery guns are amazing. They fire pretty quickly. However, as you unlock more and more later weaponry, you're going to notice that it's pretty slow to fire. Like the heavy artillery pieces, they can sometimes take, 10 to 30 seconds to load, which might not seem like a lot, but when you're trying to lay down fire or take out something like this that's within range and is a serious threat, it's a problem. I'm hoping they get into range before they set up, because if they don't, we're going to have a hard time here. Alright, cool. They're within range. And I'm going to have my machine gun nest move up, and I'm going to have my pack move up as well, because they're about to get mortared. Yep, dead. See, this is what I'm talking about, how severe of a threat certain weapons are like this. They will absolutely decimate your forces, no problem at all. My gun isn't even bothering to fire, so I'm going to manually fire. Took it out. So we're going to, so we lost both our pack gun, and we lost our our machine gun. So that was a pretty nasty loss right there. I'm going to take some infantry off the squad because I at least want to man the pack gun. That's a super important weapon, especially if they call another tank. I have no anti-tank forces to defend against that down there. And I'm going to use this tank here to be the machine gun. Now I could pull some more men off the squad and I could man the machine gun. Up to you. Not always the best choice. I want to make sure I have some infantry available further south as well. So we're going to rotate the gun, facing the proper way, and we're going to go ahead and move this tank close to it to support. So we have a little bit of time in this battle. We probably have another 3 to 5 minutes, I'd imagine, based on what I'm looking at, where it's ticking down. Rotate this gun again. One other thing to mention, heavier artillery, as you get further into the game, does not automatically target and fire. In fact, you can change its firing mode to do fire at will. It doesn't seem to work regardless. Like these smaller guns, if something comes within range, normally it's going to fire. The bigger pieces of artillery, nah, I haven't really seen them automatically fire. And you probably don't want them to do that. Number one, the ammo is extremely expensive. Number two, they're just going to fire at random crap. You need them to concentrate more on like mortars and anti-tank guns coming in and things like that. Those are going to be your points of concentration more than anything else. So, just another key point to mention here. Now I could technically move this tank up, move it back over here to support. This is where certain mobile platforms really come in handy. Mobile anti-air platforms, like mobile. There's a Flak 88 you can unlock later on in the game. That's on a truck. It's amazing. Really good weapon. That's great. You can kind of move it up and down your line to address things. Heavy tanks are great for that too, moving them up and down the line to kind of, if you're starting to get overrun and your second point, move it up. But I am going to leave this tank here because I'm actually fairly confident the forces I have in play should be able to deal with this infantry, including this gun. It's just going to hopefully decimate them. Anytime now. Boom, look at that. Pretty much wiped the entire squad with one shot. Only 2 guys left. Super effective weapon against infantry. So we have another 300, less than 300 points to capture, and as you can tell, it's ticking every second. So we have roughly, probably 4 minutes, I guess, if you're doing it based off of seconds to hold the battle. Now, if you're like me, and you're going to have times where these get really sticky, and you literally win by the skin of your teeth, as that saying goes. Like it's really, really tight. Like you have 3 points down, 1 left. They are just swarming the crap out of it, and you just barely manage to pull it off. Don't be afraid to pull back. If a point's really just getting smashed and you can't hold it, pull back. Go to the second point. Reset up a defensive line to hold it and deal with your problems from there. Don't try to hold all the points if you're unable to do it. It's not a big deal. All it'll do is it will slow down the tick of time. So it might be every 2 seconds for a point. Not a huge deal if you're able to concentrate your forces and deal with these enemies. This is a very dangerous weapon. This is a field howitzer, which will probably outrange my other gun. This is kind of surprising, being our second battle. I haven't actually seen them bring in a lot of equipment like this. It's normally just infantry, maybe 1 or 2 tanks. So it's kind of interesting to see this change because these ranged weapons are extremely devastating, as you can tell. That one stupid mortar knocked out a pack and a machine gun, no problem at all. It took no time at all to do that. So let's get this bad boy in range, and let's see if we can knock him out as fast as we can before he can set up and destroy the infantry and the gun I have in place. Please fire. I'm going to have to do it manually. So again, I pressed E to manually fire. As you can tell, when I told it to fire, the gun didn't do anything at all. It just kind of sat there. It's not knocked out until it shows up as white, or it shows up as, or it will explode. Oh my gosh, it's getting some fire off, which is not what I wanted. It's taking much longer than okay, the gun's knocked out. my gun took some serious damage. So take a look here. You'll notice I'm actually selecting on the gun. The tire is red, which means it's really badly damaged. Yellow means that it took moderate damage. Problem with that's going to be, depending on what piece of your tank or gun takes damage, it'll affect how quickly it reloads. It'll affect it if you can even move at all. Things to keep in mind: if we get a break in fighting, I'm going to want to probably reshift and have this weapon kind of pull back and maybe have the crew repair it. That's going to be important. So I am actually going to pull the tank just in case to deal with this infantry that's moving up. This gun is ignoring what I'm doing or saying, and it's firing on the wrong squad, so I'm pressing E to take control of it. Again, micromanagement central. This is what this game is going to be all about for you. Sometimes you're going to have to just take control of things and do it yourself because the AI doesn't listen to you, or it just doesn't want to. Yeah, there's all kind of weirdness you're going to experience with this. Alright, so we are pretty much leveling this squad coming in. One guy left. Man, how many artillery shells am I going to use for one squad? Dead. Okay. So I'm going to actually press the little gear symbol, and I'm going to keep clicking the repair option, which pulls the entire squad or the gun crew off to start repairing it. The way you can tell the progress of things that are getting repaired, there's a couple ways. Number one, if you see this above a guy, that means he's still repairing it. Number two, there's going to be a little bar that appears here. Sometimes it's blue, and it's turning blue now. It's not very intuitive. The game doesn't really talk about this, so you would never know without zooming in and looking or having experience to kind of understand what's going on. So we're going to put the crew back on the gun. Important, you just notice that they did not automatically go back on the gun when they're done repairing. Trust me when I say that I've been screwed a couple times thinking they would just jump back on, or a tank crew would jump back at the tank, and then I turn around, look away for 1 second when the battle's going south in another sector, and they're dead because they were standing outside the tank or the gun. So another important thing to note here. So we're approaching the last 100 seconds. As you can tell, we moved our defensive line. We did well. We kind of held the positions. We're just going to hang out now and wait and see. They will probably send in a couple more waves, I would think. Sometimes at the very end there's a large push. Other times I've seen where nobody else comes in. If it's a particularly devastating battle where you're decimating the AI, I have seen defensive battles end like this. For the last 100, 200 seconds, no one else comes in. Because I literally wiped out pretty much everything they had available, and I'm guessing their action points haven't built up enough time to send in more. So it's very well possible we may see no other action. It's also possible that they send in a huge amount of forces and just try to really throw us off. So if they do, pretty confident we're good either way. Now, if I'm able to hold this much up until this point, they're probably not going to be able to do much damage or issues, or cause any issues for us, really. So I'm having the gun just kind of, again, rotate. I'm manually telling it, hey, rotate. Oof. Speaking of the gun, there's something else coming on this side that's more dangerous. Another field gun. Again, guys, super weird. I normally haven't seen this. I've played quite a few dynamic campaigns where the second defensive battle they're bringing in. I'd call this probably light, maybe light to medium field guns. They are high risk. If you see stuff like this, that should be the focus of your attention. Anti-tank guns they could easily one-shot your tanks. Artillery pieces can easily one-shot your tanks and completely wipe out a squad in a matter of seconds. I'm going to press E and try to, I'm going to manually fire on this one. It's too risky. While we only have about 50 seconds left, I'm not going to risk not dealing with this threat, because the problem is if they get in range to start firing, if they get one good shot off, they can wipe off a squad, and then I got to replace that squad. Don't want that to happen. So let's see here. I'm just, you know what? I don't think it's going to get into range before this is up. So I'm not going to scratch that. I'm going to have this gun just rotate and fire on the infantry that are coming in. So I think this gun's pretty much going to be low risk, not much of an issue. The battle should hopefully be over. Maybe now. Nah, it's still way out of range. Alright, cool. The infantry is pretty much dealt with. Now I'm going to just rotate it just in case. We have 10 seconds, but you never know. Maybe this pack, actually the pack is within range to fire. So you're gonna notice right off the bat, guys, what I talked about, the pack wasn't facing the direction. Could have been firing on it for about 10 seconds now. Didn't bother, didn't rotate automatically. Keep an eye on stuff like that. So cool, we won. Let's take a look and see what we won. And we'll wrap this video up with just kind of patching up your army and maybe next steps from here. So there's our resources gained, like we covered before. Got some good payback bonus. Total gain, not too bad. So I took some decent losses here. I'm going to manually resupply this squad, and our officer. I am going to actually, I'm going to resupply this pack, but I'm going to pull it out. We're going into an offensive battle, so again, we're not going to really need that. I'm going to dismiss our ammo crate, and I'm going to throw another one in there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and resupply all these other pieces. Now, we actually ended up losing both our machine guns. Not a huge deal. Again, we're going into an offensive battle next, so I would probably dare say either we're going to throw in a tank, a better tank, or maybe throw in an extra infantry squad, or maybe even an extra gun. This also could be the time you decide to say, hey, in my research, I'm going to go ahead and jump down here. I'm going to grab a truck. So I'm going to unlock the blitz truck, and then I'm going to unlock this first artillery piece. So that's an option too. Would be an actually really good option, especially early on in the game like this. It's going to give you a massive edge to be able to hit them from a long distance and deal with threats like that. But that pretty much is going to wrap up this video, guys. This is defensive battles in a nutshell. It's about being fluid. It's about thinking on your toes and making sure that you're able to move your forces quickly enough to keep an eye on them as well. As you can see, it takes 3 seconds to take your eye off the prize. A squad gets blown up across the map, you're not paying attention, and then they can just take a point. So, hope this helps. If you guys have any other videos you want me to cover, let me know if this was helpful. If it wasn't, I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. We're going to actually jump in for our next one. We're going to continue our campaign and start moving into a little bit more advanced tactics. So, I'll see you guys on the next one.